When the HOA Karen tried to burn my daughter's ranch house, she never expected I control the county judge. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this nightmare started. I was driving home from my law office that Tuesday evening when I saw the smoke. At first, I thought maybe someone was having a barbecue, but as I got closer to Emma's property, my blood turned to ice. Black smoke was billowing from the back of her ranch house, the house she'd spent 3 years building with her own hands. My foot slammed the accelerator. Emma had worked double shifts as a nurse for 5 years to save every penny for this place. She'd drawn the blueprints herself, learned carpentry on YouTube, and poured her soul into every board and nail. This wasn't just a house, it was her dream, her sanctuary, her proof that a single mom could build something beautiful for her kids. I screeched into her driveway just as the fire department was hosing down what remained of her back deck and storage shed. Emma stood there in her scrubs, still clutching her stethoscope, tears streaming down her face as she watched years of work literally go up in smoke. "Dad, I don't understand," she whispered when she saw me. The fire chief said it started in 3 different places. Who would do this to us? I knew exactly who. Karen Hendricks, the HOA president with her perfectly manicured nails and that sickeningly sweet smile she wore while destroying people's lives. For months, she'd been harassing Emma with bogus violations. The fence was supposedly 2 inches too tall. The chicken coop violated some obscure agricultural restriction. The wildflower garden was unsightly and non-conforming. Each citation came with threats of liens, lawsuits, and forced property sales. But arson? Even for Karen, this felt like crossing a line I never thought she'd dare cross. The fire chief, a weathered man named Rodriguez, pulled me aside. "Mr. Thompson, I've been doing this for 20 years. This wasn't an accident. Someone used accelerant, probably gasoline, in multiple locations. We're calling it arson." My hands clenched into fists. "Any witnesses? Security cameras?" "Nothing concrete yet, but—" He glanced around, then leaned closer. "Your neighbor across the street mentioned seeing a white BMW parked near the property around 3 p.m. Said it looked like someone was watching the house. Karen drove a white BMW. Of course she did. The insurance investigator will be here tomorrow," Rodriguez continued. "But between you and me, whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They targeted the deck and shed expensive to rebuild, but not enough to total the house. Almost like they were sending a message. A message. That's exactly what this was." Karen's final warning before she moved to have Emma's property seized through HOA enforcement. She'd made it crystal clear at last month's board meeting, non-compliant properties will face escalating consequences until residents choose to relocate to more suitable communities. I watched Emma survey the damage, her shoulders shaking with exhaustion and fear. My little girl who'd fought through nursing school while raising 2 kids, who'd never asked me for a dime, who'd built this ranch as her fortress against a world that had already taken too much from her. That's when something cold and calculating settled in my chest. Karen had made this personal. She'd attacked my family, threatened my daughter's home, and probably assumed she was untouchable behind her HOA power and her husband's construction company connections. What Karen didn't know, what nobody in this community knew, was that Judge Martinez and I went back 25 years. We'd been roommates in law school, study partners through the bar exam, and best men at each other's weddings. Miguel owed me more favors than either of us could count. Emma turned to me, her eyes desperate. "Dad, what if she keeps escalating? What if next time she burns down the whole house? I can't fight the entire HOA. Maybe I should just sell and move somewhere else." No, the word came out harder than I'd intended. Absolutely not. You're not running from some power-hungry bully who thinks she owns this neighborhood. But Dad, You don't understand how vicious she's been. The other neighbors are terrified of her. She's gotten 3 families to sell and move just this year. The HOA board does whatever she says. I put my hands on Emma's shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. Sweetheart, trust me on this. Karen Hendricks has no idea what she just started. She thinks she holds all the power in this community, but she's about to learn that some battles you simply cannot win. Emma searched my face, confused by the absolute certainty in my voice. What are you talking about, Dad? I smiled for the first time since seeing that smoke. Let's just say Karen's about to discover that burning bridges works both ways. And I know exactly which bridge to burn first. To understand why this attack cut so deep, you need to know what Emma's ranch house really represented. This wasn't just another suburban property, it was her resurrection story. 2 years ago, Emma was living in a cramped apartment with her 7-year-old twins, barely making ends meet on a nurse's salary. Her ex-husband had disappeared after the divorce, leaving her with crushing medical school debt and no child support. I'd offered to help financially dozens of times, but Emma had this stubborn pride that reminded me painfully of her mother. Dad, I need to prove I can do this myself, she'd said. My kids need to see their mom can build something from nothing. So she picked up every overtime shift the hospital offered. Worked holidays, weekends, pulled double shifts, until she was running on caffeine and determination alone. She saved $40,000 in 3 years, every single penny, going toward her dream of owning land. When she found those 5 acres on the edge of Willowbrook Estates, I thought she'd lost her mind. The property was raw land with no utilities, surrounded by an HOA, community of million-dollar homes. But Emma saw potential where others saw problems. Look at this space, Dad, she'd said, walking me through the overgrown lot. The kids could have horses, maybe some chickens. I could grow vegetables, have a workshop. This is where we start over. She spent months learning construction from YouTube videos, building forums, and library books. I watched my daughter transform from exhausted single mother into this fierce, capable woman who could frame walls, run electrical, and troubleshoot plumbing issues that stumped professional contractors. The twins would help after school, handing her tools and painting walls. 8-year-old Jake became her unofficial assistant foreman, while his sister Maya designed the chicken coop and planned the garden. It was beautiful watching this broken family rebuild themselves alongside their dream house. But Karen Hendricks noticed Emma from day one. That property doesn't belong in our community, Karen had announced at Emma's first HOA meeting. Agricultural activities violate our covenant standards. This is a prestigious residential neighborhood, not a hobby farm. Emma had researched everything. Her property was technically within HOA boundaries, but grandfathered under agricultural zoning from before the subdivision was developed. She had every legal right to her chickens, garden, and horse paddock. Karen didn't care about legal rights. She cared about control. The harassment started small. Citations for Emma's mailbox being the wrong shade of black. Complaints that her pickup truck was commercial equipment that violated parking restrictions. Demands that her vegetable garden be relocated because it was visible from the street and therefore aesthetically displeasing to neighboring property values. Emma fought every citation, attended every board meeting, and researched every rule. But Karen had something Emma didn't: unlimited time and resources. Karen's husband owned Hendricks Construction, one of the largest building companies in the county. She could afford to drag Emma through months of legal battles, knowing that a single mother couldn't match her stamina or financial backing. The psychological warfare escalated quickly. Karen would drive by Emma's property daily, taking photos of any perceived violations. She'd file complaints with the county about noise disturbances when Emma used power tools on weekends. She convinced 2 board members that Emma's property was bringing down neighborhood values, threatening everyone's investment. "She's trying to break me, Dad," Emma had confided 3 months ago. Yesterday, she filed a complaint because Jake's bicycle was improperly stored in our own driveway. Last week, it was because I was burning brush in my fire pit during approved hours. She's documenting everything, building some kind of case against us. I'd told Emma to hang tough, that bullies eventually back down when you don't surrender. But I was wrong. Karen wasn't backing down. She was escalating towards something I never saw coming. The breaking point came 2 weeks before the fire. Karen had filed a formal petition with the county to have Emma's property declared non-conforming with community standards and force its sale at public auction. The petition was scheduled for review by the county judge. Emma had called me crying after receiving the legal notice. "Dad, she's going to take my house. Her lawyers are claiming that my agricultural activities violate noise ordinances, sanitation codes, and zoning restrictions. They have photographs, witness statements, even complaints about the smell of my compost pile. She's been building this case for months." That's when I should have told Emma about my connection to Judge Martinez. But I wanted Emma to succeed on her own merits, not because her father could pull strings. I believed justice would prevail through proper legal channels. I was naive. Miguel Martinez and I had been through everything together. Law school study sessions that lasted until dawn. The bar exam that nearly broke both our spirits. His wedding to Maria, where I gave the best man speech. My wife's funeral, where Miguel held me together when I couldn't stand alone. Miguel owed me more than friendship, he owed me his career. 15 years ago, when a corruption investigation threatened to destroy his judicial appointment, I'd worked pro bono for 6 months to clear his name. I'd proven the allegations were politically motivated lies, saving both his reputation and his family's future. But I'd never asked Miguel for a favor. Not once in 25 years. I'd built my legal practice on merit, not connections. That was about to change. Emma's ranch house wasn't just her home. It was her proof that single mothers could build empires from nothing. That broken families could heal themselves through hard work and determination. That bullies like Karen Hendricks couldn't destroy everyone they targeted. Standing in Emma's smoke-damaged driveway, watching my daughter's dream literally smoldering, I made a decision that would change everything. Karen thought she held all the power in this community. She was about to learn that real power doesn't come from HOA positions or construction company money. It comes from knowing exactly which judge will be reviewing your case. The emergency HOA meeting was called for Thursday night, 2 days after the fire. Karen had sent a community-wide email claiming urgent safety concerns regarding non-compliant properties needed immediate board discussion. The woman had balls, I'll give her that. Emma didn't want to attend. She'd spent the last 48 hours dealing with insurance adjusters, fire investigators, and cleanup crews. The twins were staying with my ex-wife until the smoke damage could be assessed, and Emma looked like she hadn't slept since Tuesday. "Dad, I can't face her right now," Emma said as we sat in her kitchen, surveying the water damage from the fire department's response. "Every time I close my eyes, I see those flames. I keep thinking about what could have happened if the twins had been home." "That's exactly why we're going," I replied. "Karen wants you scared and isolated. She's counting on you being too traumatized to defend yourself." The Willowbrook Estates Community Center was packed. Word had spread about the fire, and neighbors were genuinely concerned about property safety. What they didn't realize was that they were about to watch Karen weaponize their fears against my daughter. Karen sat at the head table in a crisp white blazer, her silver hair perfectly styled, surrounded by her 3 loyal board members. She looked like a suburban politician preparing for a campaign speech. The moment Emma and I walked in, Karen's eyes locked onto us with undisguised satisfaction. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Karen began, her voice carrying that fake concern she'd perfected over years of neighborhood manipulation. As you know, we've experienced a tragic fire incident that highlights ongoing safety concerns in our community. She clicked to the first slide of her prepared presentation, aerial photos of Emma's property taken before the fire. The chicken coop, the vegetable garden, the horse paddock, and the workshop Emma had built by hand. For months, the board has documented numerous violations at 1247 Oak Ridge Lane, Karen continued. Unpermitted structures, agricultural activities in residential zones, improper storage of flammable materials. Tuesday's fire was a predictable consequence of these ongoing safety hazards. My blood boiled. She was blaming Emma for the arson. The fire department has confirmed this was arson. I stood up, my voice cutting through the murmurs. Someone deliberately set fires in 3 separate locations using gasoline as accelerant. Are you seriously suggesting my daughter burned down her own property? Karen's smile never wavered. Mr. Thompson, I understand you're upset about your daughter's situation. But facts are facts. Properties that don't maintain community standards create risks for everyone. She clicked to the next slide photos of Emma's supposedly hazardous conditions. The compost pile, Karen claimed, violated sanitation codes. The workshop where Emma stored lumber and tools. The fire pit where she burned yard waste during county approved hours. Look at these images, Karen addressed the room. Combustible materials stored inappropriately. Open flame activities near wooden structures. Chemical fertilizers adjacent to electrical equipment. This fire didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because safety protocols were ignored. Emma started crying beside me. Not the angry tears I'd expected, but the quiet sobs of someone watching their character assassinated in public. Karen was masterfully turning my daughter into the villain of her own victimization story. Furthermore, Karen continued, our insurance carrier has expressed concerns about liability exposure from non-conforming properties. One claim like Tuesday's incident could raise premiums for every homeowner in Willowbrook Estates. Brilliant. Evil but brilliant. Karen was making every neighbor see Emma as a threat to their own financial security. That's enough, I stood again, but Karen cut me off. Mr. Thompson, you're not a resident of this community, so you don't have speaking privileges at board meetings. However, I'm sure everyone appreciates your concern for your daughter's situation. The dismissal was surgical. Karen had just reminded everyone that I was an outsider, that Emma stood alone against the collective will of the community. The board has no choice but to accelerate enforcement proceedings, Karen announced. Effective immediately, Property 1247 Oak Ridge Lane is designated non-compliant pending a county review. If violations aren't corrected within 30 days, we'll petition for forced sale under Community Covenant Authority. Emma gasped. 30 days? The fire damage alone will take months to repair. And half these violations are completely fabricated. Ms. Thompson, emotional responses don't change legal realities, Karen replied with that condescending tone she'd perfected. You've had 18 months to address these concerns. The board has been more than patient. Patient? Emma's voice cracked. You've harassed me every single day for over a year. You've filed false complaints, intimidated my contractors, and now someone burned down my property after you publicly threatened escalating consequences. How is any of this legal? Karen's expression hardened. The mask was slipping. Miss Thompson, if you can't handle community standards, perhaps you should consider relocating to a more suitable environment. Rural areas might better accommodate your lifestyle preferences. The room went silent. Even Karen's supporters seemed uncomfortable with the naked hostility in her voice. That's when I realized Karen had made a critical mistake. She had revealed her true motivation wasn't community safety or property values. It was personal animosity toward Emma and everything she represented. Mrs. Hendricks, I said, my voice calm and measured, are you actually suggesting that my daughter should be driven from her legally purchased property because you don't approve of her lifestyle? I'm suggesting that people who can't respect community agreements should face appropriate consequences, Karen replied. Your daughter signed the same covenants as every other resident. Covenants that don't prohibit agricultural activities on grandfathered agricultural land, I countered. Covenants that don't authorize arson as an enforcement mechanism. Karen's face flushed. Are you accusing me of criminal activity, Mr. Thompson? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the room was watching, waiting to see if I'd make the direct accusation we were all thinking. I'm saying that someone who knew exactly which structures to target committed arson on my daughter's property, I replied. Someone familiar with HOA violation reports. Someone who had detailed photographs of Emma's buildings and storage areas. Someone who stood to benefit from forcing Emma to sell. Karen stood abruptly, her composure finally cracking. This meeting is adjourned. The board has made its position clear. Property 1247 Oak Ridge Lane has 30 days to achieve compliance or face forced sale proceedings. As people filed out, several neighbors approached Emma with genuine sympathy and offers to help. But the damage was done. Karen had successfully framed Emma as a safety threat and liability risk. Outside in the parking lot, Emma finally broke down completely. Dad, she's going to win, Emma sobbed against my shoulder. She has the board, the community support, and unlimited legal resources. I can't fight all of them. Yes, you can, I said firmly. Because Karen just made her biggest mistake. What mistake? She's destroying my reputation and forcing me out. I looked toward Karen's white BMW as she drove past us with a satisfied smirk. She showed her hand too early, I explained. Karen just proved this isn't about community safety or property values. This is personal vindictive harassment, and harassment leaves evidence. Emma looked up at me with desperate hope. What kind of evidence? I smiled grimly. The kind that federal judges really don't like. Karen thinks she's untouchable because she controls the HOA board. She's about to learn that county judges don't answer to suburban dictators. But Dad, you don't understand how the legal system works around here. Her husband's construction company has connections everywhere. The local courts, the county commissioners, even the building inspectors. They own this whole system. Emma, I said gently, trust me when I say Karen Hendricks has no idea what kind of system she's really dealing with. Some battles aren't won in HOA meetings or community centers. Then where are they won? In places where friendship matters more than campaign contributions. And where justice still means something. That night, I made the call I'd been avoiding for 25 years. Miguel, it's David Thompson. David, Jesus, it's been months. How are you holding up? I heard about Emma's situation through the courthouse grapevine. Judge Miguel Martinez sounded genuinely concerned, which gave me hope. Miguel, I need to cash in every favor you've ever owed me. My daughter's being destroyed by someone who thinks she's above the law. Tell me everything. For the next hour, I laid out Karen's entire campaign, the fabricated violations, the contractor intimidation, the poisoned chickens, the corrupted arson investigation. Miguel listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification on dates and documentation. David, this sounds like organized criminal harassment, Miguel said finally. But Karen Hendricks, her husband's construction company, handles half the county's municipal contracts. She has serious political connections. More serious than our friendship? A long pause. No, nothing's more serious than that. But we need to be smart about this. If we're going after someone with Karen's resources, we can't just rely on emotional appeals. We need evidence that would convince a federal prosecutor. What kind of evidence? Financial crimes, civil rights violations, anything that moves this beyond local HOA disputes into federal jurisdiction. Because David, if we're doing this, we're doing it right and we're making sure Karen can never hurt anyone else's family. The next morning, I hired a forensic accountant and a private investigator. If Karen had been this brazen about harassment and intimidation, I was betting she'd been equally reckless about other aspects of her little empire. I was right. Within a week, my investigator had uncovered a pattern that made me sick to my stomach. Emma wasn't Karen's first victim. She was just the latest in a 5-year campaign of systematic neighborhood cleansing. Look at these property records my investigator, Sarah Chen, spread documents across my conference table. In the last 5 years, Karen has forced 11 families to sell their homes through HOA enforcement actions. Every single family was middle class, working class, or single-parent households. The pattern was undeniable. Karen would target families who couldn't afford prolonged legal battles, manufacture violations that were impossible to remedy quickly, then offer to help them sell through her preferred real estate agent, who happened to be her sister-in-law. Here's where it gets interesting, Sarah continued. Karen's sister-in-law consistently purchases these properties through shell companies, then immediately resells them to Karen's husband's construction clients at massive profits. The families being forced out get below-market prices, while Karen's family network makes hundreds of thousands per property. That's organized fraud, I realized. She's running a real estate scam using HOA authority as leverage. It gets worse. Look at these HOA financial records. The forensic accountant's report was devastating. Karen had been embezzling HOA funds for 3 years, using creative accounting to hide theft that totaled nearly $400,000. Legitimate maintenance contracts were inflated. Then kickbacks were paid to Karen's personal accounts. Community improvement projects existed only on paper while Karen pocketed the budgeted funds. She's been stealing money from the same neighbors she claims to protect, I told Miguel during our next conversation, and using that stolen money to finance her harassment campaigns against families like Emma's. This changes everything, Miguel replied. Financial fraud, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud, potential RICO violations. David, we're not just talking about saving Emma's house anymore. We're talking about dismantling a criminal enterprise. What do you need from me? Everything. Every document, every recording, every witness statement. I'm going to request a federal investigation, but I need ironclad evidence that can't be dismissed or buried by local political connections. The next 2 weeks were intensive preparation. Sarah documented every aspect of Karen's operation, the manufactured violations, the intimidated contractors, the corrupted investigations, the financial theft. We interviewed 8 families who'd been forced from their homes, discovering a systematic pattern of targeting based on economic vulnerability. Most importantly, we found Karen's mistake. Look at this email. Sarah showed me a printed message recovered from the HOA server. Karen sent this to her sister-in-law the day after Emma's fire. Thompson property should be available within 30 days. Fire damage gives us excellent leverage for below-market acquisition. Prepare standard shell company purchase at 40% discount. Karen had documented her own criminal conspiracy in writing. Miguel was impressed when I presented our evidence packet. David, this is federal prosecutor quality work. Karen left a paper trail that proves premeditated fraud, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. But there's one more element we need. What's that? We need to catch her in the act. All this evidence shows past crimes, but we need current criminal behavior to justify immediate intervention. What do you have in mind? Miguel smiled grimly. Karen filed a petition to force Emma's property sale, right? That petition is scheduled for review in my courtroom next Friday. What if Karen doesn't get the compliant judge she's expecting? You're going to hear the case personally? I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to give Karen enough rope to hang herself. See, Karen assumes she controls this process through her political connections. She'll walk into my courtroom expecting a rubber stamp approval. Instead, she'll face detailed questions about her evidence, her authority, and her motivations. And David? I'm betting Karen's arrogance won't let her stay quiet when challenged. She'll reveal her true nature right there on the record. Miguel was right about Karen's psychology. She'd gotten away with intimidation and corruption for so long that she believed she was untouchable. Her success had made her reckless. There's one more thing, Miguel added. I've been coordinating with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They're very interested in Karen's HOA embezzlement and real estate fraud schemes. If Friday goes as planned, Karen will leave my courtroom in handcuffs. I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. Miguel, I can't thank you enough for this. David, you saved my career 15 years ago. You proved my integrity when everyone else was ready to destroy me. Now, I get to return the favor by proving that justice still matters more than political connections. That evening, I called Emma with news I'd been waiting months to share. Emma, I need you to trust me one more time. Don't sign any papers, don't accept any offers, and don't give up on your house. Dad, the hearing is in 3 days. Karen's lawyers will have everything they need to force the sale. I can't fight anymore. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Karen thinks she's walking into a friendly courtroom where her connections guarantee victory. She has no idea that the judge reviewing her petition has been waiting 25 years to repay a debt. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that sometimes the good guys do win. Sometimes, bullies who think they own the system discover that real power comes from friendship, loyalty, and doing what's right. Dad, you're scaring me. What have you done? I smiled for the first time in weeks. I've reminded Karen Hendricks that some fights can't be won through intimidation. Some battles are decided by who stands with you when everything else fails. And who stands with us? Someone who believes that justice matters more than campaign contributions. Someone who's about to show Karen that her little kingdom was built on quicksand. Friday couldn't come soon enough. Karen walked into Judge Martinez's courtroom like she owned it. Designer suit, perfect hair, and that confident smile of someone who'd never lost a battle she couldn't buy her way out of. She brought 3 lawyers, a briefcase full of fabricated evidence, and the absolute certainty that this hearing was just a formality. Emma sat beside me, pale and trembling. She had no idea what was about to unfold. All rise for the Honorable Judge Miguel Martinez, the bailiff announced. Miguel entered wearing his judicial robes, his expression neutral and professional. For a moment, I wondered if he was having second thoughts about our plan. Then our eyes met briefly, and I saw the steel determination I remembered from law school. Please be seated. We're here to review petition 8C 2024-1847, Willowbrook Estates HOA versus Thompson, regarding property compliance enforcement. Counsel, please state your names for the record. Karen's lead attorney, a sharp-dressed man named Bradley Hughes, stood confidently. Your Honor, Bradley Hughes representing Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. We're seeking immediate enforcement of community covenants against a chronically non-compliant property. My attorney, Jennifer Walsh, rose next. Jennifer Walsh representing Emma Thompson, Your Honor. Miguel nodded. Mr. Hughes, please present your case. Hughes launched into Karen's carefully crafted narrative. The property violations, the fire safety concerns, the community impact, the repeated failures to achieve compliance. He presented photograph after photograph of Emma's supposedly hazardous conditions, each image designed to make her look irresponsible and dangerous. Your Honor, Miss Thompson has repeatedly ignored HOA authority and community standards, Hughes concluded. The association has been more than patient, but public safety requires immediate intervention. We respectfully request authorization for forced sale under covenant enforcement provisions. Miguel reviewed the documents silently, his expression unreadable. Then he looked up with the neutral curiosity I'd seen him use to destroy unprepared lawyers in law school. Mr. Hughes, I have some questions about your evidence. Of course, Your Honor. These photographs of Miss Thompson's property were taken over what time period? Approximately 18 months, Your Honor. And who took these photographs? HOA, board members conducting routine compliance inspections. Miguel held up one photo. This image shows Miss Thompson's chicken co-op, which you claim violates agricultural restrictions. But according to county records, this property maintains grandfathered agricultural zoning from before the HOA was established. How does the HOA have authority to prohibit pre-existing agricultural rights? Hughes shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, the HOA covenants supersede previous zoning classifications. Do they? Please show me the specific legal authority that allows private covenants to override county zoning rights. Well, Your Honor, the community standards. Mr. Hughes, I asked for legal authority, not community preferences. Do you have documentation showing how private HOA covenants can eliminate existing property rights? Hughes fumbled through his papers. Karen leaned forward, whispering urgently in his ear. She looked annoyed that her lawyer wasn't handling these softball questions properly. Miguel continued. Let's discuss this fire you've referenced extensively. According to the fire department report, this was confirmed arson. Someone deliberately set fires in 3 separate locations using gasoline as accelerant. Are you suggesting Miss Thompson committed arson against her own property? No, Your Honor, but the fire highlighted existing safety hazard. Mr. Hughes, arson is a federal crime. If someone targeted Miss Thompson's property because of HOA violations, that would constitute criminal conspiracy. Has the HOA board cooperated fully with the arson investigation? I believe so, Your Honor. You believe so? Miguel's voice sharpened. Mr. Hughes, I have the Sheriff's Department report stating that this investigation was terminated due to jurisdictional questions after someone with political influence requested the case be transferred to civil courts. Can you explain who made that request? Hughes looked genuinely confused. This wasn't in his briefing materials. Your Honor, I'm not aware of any interference with criminal proceedings. Miguel turned his attention to Karen, who had been growing visibly agitated. Mrs. Hendricks, as HOA president, you would have been contacted by investigators about this arson case. Did you or anyone acting on the HOA's behalf request that criminal charges be dropped in favor of civil proceedings? Karen stood, her composure cracking. Your Honor, I don't understand why criminal matters are relevant to HOA covenant enforcement. Mrs. Hendricks, please answer the question. Did you contact law enforcement about this case? I may have spoken with Sheriff Davidson about jurisdictional concerns. You contacted the sheriff directly about an ongoing arson investigation involving your HOA enforcement target? Karen realized she'd just admitted to interfering with a criminal investigation. Your Honor, I was simply trying to clarify. Mrs. Hendricks, let's discuss your qualifications to make these determinations. According to your HOA registration documents, you've been president for 4 years. How many properties has the association forced to sell during your tenure? Hughes tried to object, but Miguel cut him off. Mrs. Hendricks, please answer. I don't have exact numbers. 11 properties, Mrs. Hendricks. 11 families forced to sell their homes through HOA enforcement actions during your presidency. That's nearly 3 families per year. Would you say that's typical for suburban HOA management? Karen's face flushed. Your Honor, we maintain high community standards. Let's examine those standards. Mrs. Hendricks, what happens to properties after families are forced to sell? They're typically purchased by buyers who better understand community expectations, such as your sister-in-law's real estate company? The courtroom went silent. Karen's eyes widened in shock. Your Honor, I don't see how my family's business interests are relevant. Mrs. Hendricks, court records show that your sister-in-law's company has purchased or facilitated the sale of 9 out of 11 properties involved in your enforcement actions. Properties purchased at below-market rates, then immediately resold at substantial profits to clients of your husband's construction company. Would you call that a coincidence? Hughes was frantically whispering with Karen, but she waved him away, her arrogance overriding her legal counsel. Your Honor, my family's success in real estate doesn't invalidate legitimate HOA enforcement. Mrs. Hendricks, let's discuss HOA finances. As president, you're responsible for community fund management, correct? Yes, Your Honor. Miguel opened a thick folder. According to forensic accounting analysis, the Willowbrook Estates HOA has reported $400,000 in maintenance and improvement expenses over the past 3 years. However, corresponding work orders, contractor payments, and completed projects account for only $180,000 in actual expenditures. Can you explain this $220,000 discrepancy? Karen went pale. Your Honor, I'd need to review our accounting records. Mrs. Hendricks, these discrepancies appear to correlate with payments to accounts controlled by members of your immediate family. Are you familiar with the term embezzlement? The courtroom erupted. Hughes was on his feet objecting, Karen was demanding to speak with her attorney, and Emma was gripping my arm in shock. Miguel gavelled for order. Mrs. Hendricks, based on evidence presented to this court, I'm denying the HOA's petition for forced sale. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the FBI for investigation of potential financial crimes, civil rights violations, and conspiracy charges. Karen exploded. You can't do this. I know who you are. I know what strings were pulled here. This is judicial corruption. Miguel's voice turned ice cold. Mrs. Hendricks, are you alleging that this court's decisions are influenced by improper considerations? I'm saying that David Thompson's connections don't override legitimate HOA authority. This whole hearing is rigged. Hughes was tugging on Karen's sleeve, begging her to stop talking, but Karen's arrogance had completely consumed her judgment. Mrs. Hendricks, Miguel said calmly, you've just accused this court of corruption, admitted to interfering with criminal investigations, and provided testimony suggesting organized financial fraud. Bailiff, please place Mrs. Hendricks under arrest, pending federal investigation. Karen's face went white as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I have rights. Mrs. Hendricks, you have the right to remain silent, the bailiff began. As Karen was led away, still screaming about corruption and connections, Miguel addressed the courtroom. This case demonstrates why property rights and legal procedures exist to protect individuals from abuse of authority. No organization, regardless of community standing or political connections, has the right to systematically harass law-abiding citizens. Emma was crying, but this time from relief and joy. Justice had finally arrived in Willowbrook Estates. Karen's arrest was just the beginning. Within hours, the story exploded across local news and social media. HOA president arrested for embezzlement and harassment dominated headlines, but Karen wasn't going quietly. From her jail cell, Karen tried to salvage her empire through her husband and remaining allies. The results were catastrophic for everyone who'd supported her reign of terror. Mr. Thompson, you need to see this, Emma called me the next morning, her voice filled with disbelief. Karen's husband just posted a Facebook rant, claiming the whole thing was a setup. Richard Hendricks had published a rambling manifesto defending his wife and attacking Judge Martinez, the FBI investigation, and our family personally. He accused me of judicial corruption, claimed Emma had deliberately burned her own property for insurance money, and threatened to expose the real criminals behind Karen's arrest. "Dad, he's basically confessing to conspiracy." Emma laughed for the first time in months. "He's admitting he knew about Karen's harassment campaign and the financial fraud. He's making it worse for everyone involved." Richard's public meltdown triggered an avalanche of consequences. The county immediately suspended all contracts with Hendricks Construction pending investigation. 3 city council members who'd received campaign contributions from the Hendricks family requested federal attorneys to review their interactions. Karen's sister-in-law's real estate license was suspended by the state pending ethics review. But Karen's most devastating mistake was trying to continue her harassment campaign from behind bars. "Emma, you're not going to believe this," I told her after receiving a call from the sheriff's department. "Karen's been making phone calls from jail, trying to coordinate attacks on your property." Detective Williams explained that jail phone calls are automatically recorded. Karen had been caught instructing Richard to file new HOA violations, directing him to contact code enforcement with false complaints, and planning to have contractors damage Emma's rebuilt structures to create evidence of ongoing safety hazard. "She's literally creating new criminal charges from jail," Detective Williams said. "Conspiracy to commit property damage, attempted witness intimidation, abuse of legal process. We've never seen anything like it." The recorded calls revealed the full scope of Karen's criminal network. She'd been paying off code enforcement officers, bribing city inspectors, and coordinating with corrupt contractors to manufacture violations against targeted families. The FBI investigation expanded to include RICO charges for operating a criminal enterprise. Meanwhile, the Willowbrook Estates community was awakening to the truth about their beloved HOA president. "Emma, I owe you the biggest apology," said Janet Miller, one of Karen's former supporters. "I had no idea she was stealing our money and terrorizing families. I'm horrified that I believed her lies about you." 8 other neighbors visited Emma over the weekend, each carrying similar apologies and offers to help. They'd discovered that their HOA fees had been funding Karen's criminal activities, while legitimate community needs were ignored. "Look at these maintenance requests," showed me a stack of ignored paperwork. Families have been begging for basic repairs for years, while Karen spent our money on personal vacations and fake legal battles. The HOA board collapsed within days. 2 members resigned in shame after learning about the embezzlement. The 3rd member, Karen's longtime ally Patricia Woods, tried to maintain Karen's innocence until she was arrested as a co-conspirator in the financial fraud scheme. "The whole board knew," Detective Williams explained. "They were all getting kickbacks from the fake contracts." Patricia was getting $500 a month to rubber stamp Karen's bogus expenditures. With no legitimate board remaining, the county dissolved the Willowbrook Estates HOA entirely. Property owners would be refunded their stolen fees and given the choice to form a new transparent community organization or operate without HOA restrictions. "Emma, this is incredible," I told my daughter as we watched contractors voluntarily repairing damage throughout the neighborhood. 3 different construction companies are working for free to fix problems Karen created. The whole community wants to make amends. But Karen's nuclear revenge plan was still to come. From jail, she'd arranged for a final assault on Emma's property. Richard and 2 other men attempted to break into Emma's house while she was at work, planning to plant drug evidence that would trigger a police raid and Child Protective Services investigation. They were caught by Emma's new security system cameras, donated by apologetic neighbors who wanted to protect the family they'd helped Karen victimize. Mrs. Thompson, your security footage shows 3 men attempting to break into your home with suspicious packages. Sheriff Davidson called to inform Emma. We arrested all 3. Mr. Hendricks is claiming he was trying to retrieve stolen property, but the packages contained what appears to be planted narcotics. Richard's arrest completed the destruction of Karen's criminal network. Faced with drug planting charges, he immediately confessed to everything, providing detailed testimony about Karen's entire operation in exchange for a reduced sentence. She kept records of everything, Richard told prosecutors. Names of families to target, amounts stolen from the HOA, bribes paid to city officials. Karen thought she was building an empire, but she was really just documenting her own crimes. The final blow came when Karen's jail phone recordings were played in court. Her voice, cold and calculating, planning to destroy Emma's children through false drug charges, horrified even her former supporters. "I never want to see that woman again," Patricia Wood said after hearing the recordings. "I thought she was protecting our community. She was destroying innocent families for money." Karen's preliminary hearing was packed with her former victims, 11 families she'd forced from their homes, dozens of neighbors she'd stolen from, and contractors she'd corrupted. They came not for revenge, but to ensure justice was finally served. "Your Honor," the federal prosecutor announced, Mrs. Hendricks faces 43 counts of embezzlement, conspiracy, civil rights violations, attempted evidence planting, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise. The government recommends detention without bail due to her continued attempts to obstruct justice and intimidate witnesses from jail. Karen sat in orange jail clothing, her perfect hair disheveled, her arrogant smile replaced by defeated exhaustion. The suburban queen who'd terrorized families for sport was facing 25 years in federal prison. As we left the courthouse, Emma took my arm. "Dad, I keep expecting to wake up and find out this is all a dream." 6 months ago, Karen seemed untouchable. Now she's facing decades in prison. Emma, that's what happens when bullies finally meet someone they can't intimidate or corrupt. Karen thought her power came from money and connections. She never understood that real power comes from truth, friendship, and doing what's right. The twins were finally coming home that weekend, returning to a ranch house that was not only restored but improved by community volunteers who wanted to atone for their previous indifference. Karen's empire had crumbled, but Emma's dream was stronger than ever. "Sometimes, sweetheart," I told her as we drove past her beautiful property, "the good guys really do win. It just takes patience, preparation, and the right allies when the moment comes." Emma smiled, looking at her rebuilt home with pride. "And it doesn't hurt to have a dad who knows which judge to call when the system fails." I laughed. "Emma, that was a one-time favor. From now on, you're fighting your own battles." "That's fine, Dad, because now I know how to win them."